BBC News, hello, I'm Gareth Barlow. President Biden has praised the airlift of American citizens from Afghanistan as an extraordinary success. In an address from the White House, Mr. Biden insisted the US had achieved everything it set out to do in Afghanistan. But his approach has faced criticism, as Peter Bowes explains.
President Biden repeated what he had said several weeks ago in terms of his reasoning behind the decision to leave on August the 31st. He said he didn't want to extend the forever war. He also said that he didn't want to extend the forever exit. And that is more pertinent to what's been happening over recent weeks. And that's where he's been getting a lot of criticism and will continue to get a lot of criticism, whereas he sees what's happened, especially the evacuation process, more than 123,000 people, as a success. There are others that believe that the whole evacuation process, as we saw it, wasn't necessary had it been planned in a different way.
In Afghanistan, the Taliban have been celebrating the US departure, describing it as a victory which should serve as a lesson for other invaders. They say they want good relations with the United States and the rest of the world, but there's widespread concern about how they intend to govern. Britain says it has evacuated 15,000 Afghans since the middle of August and expects to settle a further 5,000 from refugee camps over the next year. The government is giving local authorities more than $25 million in funding to support the new arrivals. The BBC's Mark Easton reports.
The Prime Minister has said Britain owes a debt of gratitude to those who worked with our armed forces in Afghanistan, and the government will help families to rebuild their lives in the UK. By granting all arrivals indefinite leave to remain, ministers are aware this may put pressure on local services. The challenge of finding suitable accommodation for the arrivals remains a very real one. Fewer than a third of councils across the UK are offering to help, with just 2,000 permanent homes so far confirmed. Thousands of Afghans are currently being accommodated in hotels.
A new laboratory test has found no evidence of Ebola in the samples of a patient thought to have been the first case of the disease in Ivory Coast for a generation. The World Health Organization now considers the patient did not have the virus. Our senior Africa correspondent, Anne Soy, has more details.
An 18-year-old woman who had travelled from Guinea showed symptoms of Ebola on arrival in Ivory Coast last month. An initial test confirmed infection, prompting the authorities in Abidjan to declare an outbreak. But further tests in France have returned a negative result. Ebola has now been ruled out. Precaution was taken. The patient was promptly isolated, her contacts traced, and thousands considered to be at risk of infection vaccinated.
This is the World News from the BBC. El Salvador's Congress has approved a new law to fund the conversion of Bitcoin to US dollars ahead of the country's adoption of the cryptocurrency as legal tender next week. The $150 million fund will be administered by the National Development Bank. Candace Piet reports.
El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, is having a tough time persuading people that making Bitcoin legal tender is a good idea. General enthusiasm is low, with a recent poll suggesting 2/3 of the population are opposed to being paid in it. The new fund is intended to make people more confident that the price of the cryptocurrency will be kept stable, so it could easily be converted to the dollar. But there are concerns the fund isn't big enough and that it could make it easy for criminals to launder Bitcoin into dollars through a national bank.
Venezuela's main opposition parties have announced they will take part in local elections in November, ending a 3-year boycott. The opposition says President Nicolas Maduro rigged his 2018 re-election. In a statement, one of the main opposition groups said the upcoming elections would not be fair, but would be useful battleground to push for presidential and parliamentary elections. The mayor of New Orleans has imposed a nighttime curfew in the city to try to stem crime in the wake of the devastation caused by Hurricane Ida. Hundreds of thousands of people in the state of Louisiana are still without electricity, tap water or fuel after the storm hit on Sunday. And conservationists are warning that about 30% of the world's tree species are facing extinction in the wild, mostly due to the clearing of forests to raise cattle and crops. Logging, fires and climate change are also key threats. The scientists say that planting more endangered species, which include oaks, maples and magnolias, could help stem their decline. From London, that's the latest BBC News.